Hello YouTube, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about a ninth age homebrew campaign that was put together mostly by my brother, but he consulted with me for a few rules, just balance wise, just to make sure it was going to work before we went ahead with it. This is a ninth age homebrew campaign, as I said. And for those of you who are not familiar with Ninth Age is a fantasy tabletop miniatures game. You buy miniatures, you paint them, then you roll a bunch of dice in your battles, and you fight other armies. Now it's fantasy based, so there are human factions, but there also are lots of monsters and mythological beasts and things like that. That's what makes it fantasy. Um, so, what we decided to do, myself and my group of friends, we wanted to play a campaign. We tried this once, way back when we were all playing Warhammer Fantasy, back I think in 7th edition Warhammer. Um, and we just wanted to try it again. And at the time, we just tried that over a summer. We didn't use computers like we do are today with digital maps and things. It's still kind of clunky the way we're doing it, but it works for us, at least right now, with several turns in. And I just wanted to share this with you. Hopefully, if there's other ninth age players out there that haven't wanted to try a homebrew campaign, maybe you can use this as a model. Learn from what our mistakes have been. Um, yeah, so I'll just talk through. This is just going to be an overview video of the campaign, how we all started, who the factions are, who's playing, and then I'm going to have other videos that actually go turn by turn. We're actually partway through the campaign right now, so I won't have battle report videos for previous battles, but I'm going to try to start doing battle report videos in the future, because the battles have been really unique because they're in this campaign setting. So they're not like typical ninth age battles at all. I mean, there's of course some elements that are similar, but I'll tell you more about those later. What I will do though is I'll make a video for each turn we've played so far, and I'll go through what happened on that turn, and if I fought a battle, I'll tell you a little bit about those battles, and I might have some pictures actually from the battles because my brother often takes pictures, so I'll see if I can dig those up. So let's just jump into it. Now, one of the things that actually inspired this campaign is the fact that my brother and I play a lot of Total War Warhammer on stream. Or not, we don't stream it. We just play it on Steam, actually, I meant to say. And we really wanted to basically take that concept of playing a campaign because we like playing the grand campaigns. We either do head-to-head or we do co-op, ally. We like doing the whole grand campaign in Total War, um, where you got to conquer so many things to win. And you get to build troops and you get to build buildings, um, and fight your battles. And so often things are lopsided in there too. And so we just wanted to kind of emulate that in ninth age with real miniatures. So that's where this all came about. So as you see here, here's the campaign master rulebook put together by my brother. It's actually it's 100 pages. There's a separate book that's just for players. It's small. It doesn't have all the detailed rules, but I just want to show you the master one because it does have everything in there. Um, so the basic way that a turn functions is at the beginning of the turn you have what are called random events. Every single faction rolls a couple different dice. We haven't really been doing it. My brother's just been automating this for us to make it faster for him. So you have random things that happen to your guys, and then you have turn orders, and your armies, your banners, can do different things each turn. Obviously, you can move, you can hold where you are, you can burn a place where you are, which is starting to come into play. I'll talk about that on each turn when I do the turn videos, and that's basically it. So let's just jump in. I'm just gonna scroll through here. You can see the table of contents. It's real nice. We just did it just for us and our friends, and this is what we're using. So I'll go through. We based it on the old Warhammer Border Prince campaign. We took those rules, but then we modified them because we tried playing that, and there's some things that didn't really work. So we modified it for us today, and to use in Ninth Age. So we used that as the base, and then we added a lot onto that. There's a lot of additional rules that weren't in the Border Princes campaign. So right now, I'll just go through. We've got these various factions. So each person has what we're calling actually a confederation is actually the term we're using. So each person has a confederation. So we've got one, two, three, four. We got 5 people. It's myself, my brother, and 3 of our friends, each with a confederation. Each confederation actually has 4 different armies, and by armies, all I mean is a faction. Uh, Most of us all owned more than one. Each of us owned at least 2. And we wanted to be able to play each faction in the campaign and not be limited to just one. That's something we did way back, and we tried this before. We only had one faction we were controlling. But then what happens is really also why we wanted to do this is we wanted to play Ninth Age battles together, but have more motivation and incentives to fight and to finish them. And also, even though we've been playing for a long time, uh, most of us have not really painted our models. We're just still playing with black models, or even totally gray, not even based. And we wanted to turn that around. So this campaign incentivizes you to paint because you get certain points for painting, and you get points also for just fighting in a battle. The points are based on the battle points that are in regular Ninth Age battles, but then you can get additional points for painting them to a certain level. We don't have super strict standards, but whatever we consider minimum, none of us are that great at painting, so we just created a baseline, and that's what you aim for. Um, and the general overview of the campaign is it's 25 turns, and whoever has the most points at the end wins, of course. So I can actually show you the score sheet later. I'll have to pull it up. Maybe I'll do that in a separate video because the points don't really matter. This is the overview. I'll show you the score sheet in later videos as I go turn by turn, so you can actually see how the points are evolving turn after turn, and there's different things that are affecting the points. So let's just go through. So these are the confederations. You have the Dark Forest of Death. You have Lord Itzalak's Alliance of Desperation. Suna's Quintum Virit, which is actually my confederation. The Confederation that must not be named. And the Hungry Dead. Now, I'll just tell you why I named mine. I can't necessarily tell you why other people named theirs the way they did, but I named mine Sunus Quintum Virit, partially because one of my factions, as you can tell, is the Empire of Sonstal. And so I really have gripped on to my whole fluff idea for my Sonstal army is I'm not going so very much into the whole uh, medieval, like Middle Europe, Germany Renaissance era, because that's what typically the Empire of Sonstal is based on. I'm more basing my armies on um, this whole concept that they follow Suna. And they have, obviously, they're going to have monasteries and religious orders that follow Suna. And so when I look in the book, I see flagellants and prelates and all these holy warriors and priests that fight. And so I base my whole army around that. So actually, once we play some battles, I'll show you some pictures. But basically, my Empire army is supposed to be essentially a monastery that went out and is fighting, and then I do have like state troops that are non-religious people, but I just consider them to be townspeople from the village that supports the monastery, because that's how they functioned in medieval Europe and Renaissance Europe. So anyway, and then I came up with Quintum Virit because I actually have 5 factions. I'll tell you about them in a bit. And I've been taking Latin. Now, I think I actually spelled it wrong. I don't think there should be a C, but quintum virit is a word I kind of made up to mean like an alliance of 5 people, because everyone knows, we should know about the triumvirate, which was an alliance of three people within the Roman Republic in this period where they were right before they became a Roman Empire. They had a triumvirate of, I believe it was Julius Caesar and Marcus Antonius and Crassus, I think, was the third one. So I decided I'm going to be the Quintumvirate. Um, I can tell you kind of about probably why these other guys named them the way they are, but let's just go through so you can see the armies. All right, so we've got the Dark Forest of Death. Um, they're playing Beast Herds, Dread Elves, and Vampire Covenant, so that's why they're the Dark Forest of Death. Obviously, Dark Forest is Beast Herds and Death. Of course, Dread Elves are like Death Elves, and Vampire Covenant, of course, vampires are death as well. So that's why he picked his name. My brother came up with these pictures and symbols to represent each confederation and faction. Each faction actually has their own rules. You can see like who they're friendly with, who they distrust, who they hate, and you get points based on certain things like that. It's actually kind of complicated, and I don't fully understand it. I basically just have been making moves, and whatever the points are, the points are. I don't do the math and calculate, okay, if I do this, I'm going to get this many points. You can't really calculate that. There's just so many factors. We just do what we do, and then you either get points or you don't. There's special locations that if certain factions capture, they get extra points, or they can do extra things like raise certain units. So it's really kind of cool, and this gives a lot of flavor additionally to each faction because we wanted to make sure that each faction felt unique while they're moving on the general campaign map and not just fighting in the battles. So each faction is a little different on the campaign map. They get different bonuses. All right. Then we've got Lord Itzalak's Alliance of Desperation. his his flag he made, it looks a lot like the Soviet Union, but it's a little different. I don't know if he made it or where he pulled it from, but anyway, so he's actually got the Inferno Dwarves, which are brand new. He's just started collecting those. He's got Kingdom of Equitaine. He's got Orcs and Goblins, Saurian Ancients, and Warriors of the Dark Gods. I think my confederation's next. Yep, Sunus Quintum Virit. So I've got Dwarven Holds, Empire Sunstal, Kingdom of Equitaine, Sylvan Elves, and Undying Dynasties. Now, the other reason why I chose to have a Latin word, Quintum Virit, is because the way I'm playing Kingdom of Equitaine is I've actually been buying up literally hundreds of Roman miniatures from the Hail Caesar company, or the Hail Caesar gaming platform. And to me, I'm playing Kingdom of Equitaine mostly as a foot army based on the Roman time period because they've got scorpions in their army book. I've always wanted to have a Roman army. A lot of people say Romans fit the empire better, but I already have an empire army, as I told you. So I decided I'm going to start a Kingdom of Equitaine army. They're going to be Romans. I bought scorpions. They look really cool. I'm really excited. I made a Reculary that's just a bunch of it's six guys carrying, I mean, it's four guys. It's either four or six guys carrying the Roman standards because the Roman standards were the basically what was sacred to them. If they lost that standard, they were so ashamed, and basically they had that really famous story of them losing the eagle standard. And there's been a lot of movies made about them going to find the eagle standard and recover it. It was really, really important. And so to them, that's what a sacred reculary would have been. So I actually have I made a sacred reculary out of standard bearers carrying all the different symbols, and I forget what they all mean right now. I'll have to go and restudy my Roman history, but each standard has something different. Of course, I have the eagle standard. Also, my BSB is an eagle standard guy, but then I have the reculary, which has an eagle standard. I've got one that's got a wreath on it, one that's got a face on it, which is like the Dehi. It's the I think it's supposed to represent like the face of the emperor. I forget what else I have. So anyway, I love my Sacred Reculary and what I've been doing with King of Equitaine. And so this is my faction. And of course I've got Undying Dynasties because I love Egyptian. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a guy who has a history background. I got a master's in history. I have a minor in archaeology. I've been to the Middle East several times to do archaeology. I love history and archaeology, so that's why I've been basing a lot of my um, even though it's fantasy gaming, I'm basing it on a lot of historical things. Uh, So I already went over Empire, King of Aquitaine, Undying Dynasties. Everyone can recognize the Egyptian fluff for them, so I love just the Egyptian aesthetic, so that's why I have them. My Dwarven Dwarves are pretty basic dwarves. I haven't figured out anything. I've been looking actually at getting some Scottish ones. There's some really cool Scottish model miniatures. They're a little expensive, so I haven't gotten those, but I'm planning on incorporating some Scottish dwarves into my army. And then Sylvan Elves, I've actually recently been purchasing Greek miniatures because with the hoplite helmet, to me the hoplite helmet always kind of to me felt like it was like a Sylvan Elf, Wood Elf aesthetic. That's what they would have worn. So my spearmen actually are Greek hoplites, and I'm going to use those same heads. I'm waiting for a box of Dacian Falchmen from Hail Caesar as well, which were humans with great weapons. But I've got a bunch of leftover phalanx heads from when I built the spears. I had a ton of heads left on the spruce, and I'm just gonna glue those to the human bodies. So they're gonna look real buff elves, but I don't really care because I'm using those as forest rangers. And so forest rangers with great weapons, of course they're gonna be buff. They're out living in the woods with a great weapon. They fight monsters. They're fearless. That's who they are. They're ripped. They got abs. Can't wait. I just ordered that box over the weekend. It should get here next week, and then I got to put that together and paint that, and then I'll have a bunch of forest rangers, which I'm really excited about. Right now I only have 10 forest rangers, but once I get that box, I'll be up to 50. So that's going to be really fun. And so that's an overview of my confederation. Um, we've got two confederations left. We've got the confederation that must not be named. Now this guy started originally with highborn elves. He started with four. All he was going to play was highborn elves, so he was going to have four different highborn elves factions on the board. But then he actually bought a 3D printer and he started printing uh, dwarven holds. He decided he wanted to play dwarves instead. And I think part of that is once we started playing, he saw where he was on the map and he saw what the objectives would be. And I think he decided that dwarves would do better for him in the campaign than elves. I don't know. It's just the way he is. He's a gamer. He's a power gamer. He always has to play the most powerful thing. He can't really process or fathom why you wouldn't play that. That's just the way he is as a person. I've known him for a long time. That's just who he is. Um, but now, so he still has one Highborn Elf faction, and he's got three Dwarven Holds factions. He sent me some pictures of what his guys look like 3D printed. Some of them look okay. I'll show you more if I actually ever fight him. And then we've got the Hungry Dead is the last guy, and he's just playing Ogre Cons and Undying Dynasties, which of course, Hungry is kind of ogres, and Dead again, Undying Dynasties, undead. So um, that is the overview of the confederations and the players. Now I want to go through. So we all started with each confederation and each faction started with an HQ. So everyone started with 4 different HQs because everyone's playing 4 different armies on the board. The HQs each have their own garrison, and that's a static list that doesn't change. There have been random events that give you additional points you can add to your garrison. So then you add them in, and then you leave the list unchanged. So you don't know who's going to come attack you. You just have to use whatever list is there. Same thing works with the army lists. You create your army list, and then it stays that way, and you march around the board, and you can't change it. If you get points from, like, for instance, if you raise a territory, you get like 400 extra points. You can then add points to the list, but you can't, like, really change the list. You can't change the way models are equipped. You can't just take out a unit to add in a new one unless you lose points. There have been the ways we've also been losing points throughout the campaign, and then you can, of course, remove a unit. But so it's kind of restrictive, but it's also kind of flexible. And one of the really cool things that I have enjoyed so far in this campaign, and why I like doing this as an alternative to playing regular Ninth Age, because I have been playing regular Ninth Age with some other people, um, is that so each banner when they're made is 3250 points. So it's 3250, 3250 points, which is less than a typical Ninth Age banner. Each HQ list you start at 4500. So each HQ list is a full regular Ninth Age army list. The banners start less, Um, but then you can get points throughout the campaign so you can grow them larger. I already actually I have a dwarf banner that's I think 48 or 4890 4900 points already, and we did put a cap. The maximum a banner can get to is 9,000. I doubt that anyone's actually ever going to get to 9,000, but we put that option in there just in case someone did. Um, Now the way it works, you create a new banner at 3250. You don't actually have to have that faction's banner be all from that faction. As long as the majority of the points is from that faction, you can have other factions in there. But the way we do it to balance it is you can't just have random units willy-nilly. Each faction that's in a banner has to have a legal list. And at this point, if you're creating a banner at 3250, that means that both lists are going to be warband points, because a warband is any army that's under 3,000 points. And so as a warband list, you have to have a character that can be a general, and you have to have 3 units. Now you don't actually get two generals. You use the general of the majority faction, and you also can only have a BSB from the majority faction. So you can only have one BSB and only one general, but you will have 2 leaders. Um, so the way this works, I've actually done this, and I can show you my lists probably in another video. But in general, I do have a list. My first banner I created for the Emperor of Sunstyle was, I think, about 1,800 points of Empire, and then I had 1,400 points of Kingdom of Aquitaine. And so, as long as you have a leader and 3 units, it's legal. So I actually had to have 2 leaders and 6 units for that banner list to be legal. But so you can actually create some really powerful and interesting lists by doing this. I don't know if anyone else has been taking advantage of this, but I really like mixing my armies together. It just gives a lot of extra flavor that you can't get in a normal Ninth Age battle. And I wish that there were tournaments or somewhere where this was allowed to do this on the same principles, where you could basically have like 3 war bands in one army list. 3 war bands of 1,500 points each is your army list. Like, to me, that would be so cool if there's a campaign, but everyone would have, or a tournament, but everyone would have to know the rules for 3 armies. And anyway, it would be kind of complicated, but I really like doing that. So that's what we're doing. Here's the rules for mixed army lists. I just talked about them. Um, and then there's additional options. I haven't taken advantage of these, so I'm not going to talk about them at this point. I already talked about what a banner is. I talked about what a HQ is. Now, I should talk about support. So support is everyone starts with an HQ and one banner. Every HQ supports one banner. For each additional 3 spaces you get, you can have a second banner. So if you have an HQ and you take 2 more spaces, you now technically own 3 spaces and you can support 2 banners. But then you can't get a third banner until you have 6 spaces, etc., etc. So this has been playing out on the map. Um, so um, the thing is, all your banners start at 3250. So if you just send your first banner out to collect spaces, you can get more banners, but then your banner is only 3250. However, if you were to stay at the HQ and hold each turn, every turn you hold at an HQ, you get 250 points added to that banner. So after several turns, it only takes you 4 turns. You could have had an extra 1,000 points in that banner. Now you have a banner that's 1,000 points more than other people's banners, making you more likely to win. Now, I'll talk about this more in later turns as I go through videos. Um, we initially thought that if you had a banner that had like 1,000 or 1,500 points more than an enemy, you would just destroy them. What we found though is when you're playing a Ninth Age battle, it's actually really hard to take those extra points and leverage them at exactly the right time that you overwhelm your opponent. So what really happens is you get half of your army, which is usually pretty equal to the other person, engages with the enemy, and then if you don't defeat them, maybe they defeat you, then you bring your other half in, and then so it's still kind of equal playing fields. So I haven't really learned how to take a full advantage of it. I need to figure out how to leverage getting, because I've had some pretty lopsided battles in my favor that I haven't been able to actually win. Um, unfortunately. And I need to figure out how to get my whole army to be able to get to charge all on the same turn to make maximum effect of having more units. Otherwise, having more units actually doesn't really matter. Or maybe I just need more shooting units. I don't know. So anyway, that's just a brief overview. And all I want to do now is talk about the map. So this is the blank map with none of the HQs on there. I'll show you what the map looked like after we placed our HQs. So basically, um, HQ spots were randomized. Everyone was given 4 HQ spots on the map randomly, and then you got to choose which of your factions started at which HQ. So you got a little bit of freedom in choosing, um, but that's it. So um, there are certain things, like obviously if you have a road, you can move a lot faster. Roads usually stretch several spaces. You need bridges to cross rivers and things. Everyone except for dwarfs needs to take a difficulty terrain test to move in mountains. They can move, they just have to roll a die, and they have to roll like a 3 or a 4 or higher to actually move into a mountain space. Dwarves can do it for free. They don't have to make that roll because they're accustomed to living in the mountains. So that's one advantage of playing a dwarf. Um, and oh, and then woods. One of my bonuses as a Sylvan Elf, if my Sylvan Elf banner fights in a wood area, I get extra points in that battle, just for that battle. They don't automatically get added to the list, they just come in for that battle. Now, what's happened though is your whole Sylvan Elf banner has to be all Sylvan Elf. You can't make a mixed list. And what I did actually for my second banner, I actually mixed it with dwarves. So I'm actually, you'll see later on, I've actually been moving that banner away from the woods because there's no benefit for that banner to fight in woods at all. So that's just a brief overview of the map. I'm not going to scroll through the whole thing because there's just a lot of rules. So trying to think about anything else I should cover. All right, let's just jump and let's take a look at the map. So my brother came up with these little flags to represent each confederation. And let's just start at the top. So up here, you take a guess. Where do you think? So I was given this. This is actually my only faction start in this part of the map. You can see I don't have any other one up here. So I actually chose Undying Dynasties to start here. Partly because this Toranok is a special space. If you get it, you get extra bonuses as a wizard. So I thought with Undying Dynasties, if I could fight a battle there, and I was the one who controlled I would have extra bonuses to my wizards. Outside of that, one of the other fun things you can do in the campaign is everyone in your confederation is automatically allied with each other. So even if like for instance, my brother's playing Warriors of Dark Gods, and he's also got Kingdom of Aquitaine. If he had a Warriors of Dark Gods army next to a Kingdom of Aquitaine army, they're allied, and you can't bring an allied army entirely into a battle. But um, let's say his Kingdom of Aquitaine army fought against this. This is a Beastman army here, and then let's say he had a Warriors of Dark Gods army next to the battlefield. He's allowed to support that banner, the Kingdom of Aquitaine banner that's in the battle, with troops from his Warriors of the Dark Gods, but support is only 400 points. And you can't split units. So if you want to support other banners in the campaign, your banners should have some units in there or characters that are less than 400 points. So some of the way that I have been building my list is to figure out, okay, which armies, which units and characters can I put in here that if I happen to be next to another army or banner from my confederation, they could lend support. So I've figured out things like 9 Pathfinders from Sylvan Elves cost 396 points. It's probably the closest you're actually going to get to 400. It's 9 Pathfinders. One of the other great things with supporting an army is you can't you can actually you don't have to follow typical list restrictions. So for instance, in a regular Sylvan Elf 9th Age army, you're only allowed a max of 2 Pathfinder units. That's the max. What I could do is I could have a main banner that has 2 units. Let's say that the main banner has 2 units of 9 Pathfinders as well. That's the max it can be. But if I have a second Sylvanelf banner nearby supporting, and that first banner gets into a battle, the second banner could then send one of its units of 9, and then I would actually have 3 units of 9 Pathfinders in one battle, which would never ever happen in a regular 9th Age battle. So you can do fun, unique things like that, and that's something else I like about this campaign. All right, so we'll just go through. I've got Undying Dynasties here. Lord Itzalak has a Kingdom of Aquitaine HQ here. The Dark Forest of Death. I believe this was a Beast Herds HQ. This is the Hungry Dead. This is a Ogres HQ. This is the faction that should not be named. This is a Dwarf HQ because they're starting in the mountains. It's perfect for dwarves. Lord Itzalak also has another faction here. This, I believe, is Saurian Ancients. Then Dark Force of Death again. They have this is another beast herd. So he's got two beast herds up in the north. The Hungry Dead has Undying Dynasties right here. Now just across the road from the Hungry Dead, I have my second faction to appear on the map, which I put my dwarf holds here. This has been perfect for dwarves, as you'll see, able to just take all these mountain spaces basically uncontested. And even though I'm right across the road from this HQ, I haven't touched it. You'll see that later on. But otherwise, so you can see there's a lot of potential for dwarves versus Undying Dynasties fighting here. There's a lot of potential for Saurian Ancients fighting Beast Herds fighting Ogres fighting Dwarves. I mean, this is basically the way it goes. So this way, because one of the things we were having difficulty with when we were just meeting to play battles is, especially we like to play big battles like 2v2. So you basically have 9,000 versus 9,000, but we could never decide who's going to be on whose side and what's fair. So in a campaign, you don't have to decide. The way you move on the map decides that for you. All right, then we go down. The faction that shall not be named. They have another dwarf HQ here. The Dark Force of Death put its vampire counts here in this little mountain HQ. It's kind of a cool spot. Warriors of Dark Gods started way down here in the corner, also in the mountains. Undying Dynasties from the Hungry Dead started here as well. And of course, here in the woods, I put my Sylvanel's HQ. Why not? I didn't have any other HQ that was in the woods. It was perfect for Sylvanel's. On the other side of these woods, though, it has been the Orcs and Goblins from Lord Itzalak's Alliance of Desperation. So you can imagine I've actually had several battles. I've actually had several battles between Sylvanel's and the Undying Dynasties out here in these plains, but I have had some battles with the Orcs and Goblins as well. Then I put my Empire Sunstall. They started in this corner. And then to the north of them, the Dark Force of Death put their Dread Elves. Across the river from the Dread Elves, there's another dwarf faction from the faction that shall not be named. And then north of those dwarves are ogres from the Hungry Dead. And just north of the river, Restblood River here, is the High Elf faction. That's the only High Elf faction on the board. So that is the map. You look at that, think about what you would do. Now, I didn't get to pick these starting locations, but I was really excited. So I was basically given, okay, randomly I was given, this is an HQ, this is an HQ, this is an HQ, and this is an HQ. If you were given those HQs with my factions, what would you have done? Now, as you can see, we each only started with 4, but my brother and I are actually playing 5 factions. So what does that look like? Right, because I said he started with Infernal Dwarves, and I have Kingdom of Aquitaine, but those factions didn't start on the board. One thing I did, and that's partly why I mixed my Empire army, is half Kingdom of Aquitaine, because I wanted to be able to use Kingdom of Aquitaine in the campaign. I wasn't sure if I was ever going to get a second HQ, and so I wanted to at least have a way to play Kingdom of Aquitaine if I wanted to. Now, I don't think garrisons can be mixed. Only the banners can be mixed. I think the garrisons have to be a complete, um, a complete army book. So that is one caveat. And then there's just these special locations that give you different bonuses. I'm not going to talk about them now. There's too many of them. But I was pretty happy with my start. I loved that I could have my dwarves here, my Sylvan elves here, my Empire here, because I wanted to be able to have Empire and Sylvanos kind of join together and fight. And then I knew dwarves would be fine on their own, just doing mountain stuff. And Undying Dynasties, I didn't know who else to put up here, but I figured they could work well enough on their own to put them up there. So that's my start. Um, and I think that's all I'm going to do in this overview video of the Ninth Age campaign. I'm going to get working on posting videos as well for each turn that we've played. We're just starting turn 8, so I'm going to start working on videos for each turn, turns 1 through 7. And then I'm actually going to be hearing news of turn 8 very soon. So if I can get turns 1 through 7 done, maybe I'll do a live video or something where I get to read what happens on turn 8 with you and tell you about it as I discover the news rather than it being in retrospect. But that's all I have for today. If you play Ninth Age, keep painting, keep modeling, keep fighting those battles, keep rolling those dice. May the 6s be with you, and that's all I have for today.